When I suggested she help with groceries since we lived together, my girlfriend scoffed. Be a man. That's your job, not mine. I just nodded. A week later, she came home to a locked fridge and bare cabinets. All right, so I got to get this down somewhere because my buddies are sick of hearing about it, but they're also the ones telling me I need to post this story. It all blew up over a carton of eggs, or rather the lack of them. My now ex-girlfriend Valerie and I had been living together for a little over a year in my apartment. The arrangement was, I thought, pretty straightforward. I own a small but successful construction company. I work long, hard hours, but I make good money. Valerie was a freelance graphic designer, which was a fancy way of saying she had a laptop, an overdue art school loan, and a deep-seated aversion to a 9-to-5 schedule. When she moved in, we had a talk. I told her I was happy to be the provider to cover the rent, the utilities, the car payments. It's how I'm wired. A man takes care of his home. All I asked in return was that she manage the domestic side of things, keep the place clean, make sure we had food to eat, be a partner. She agreed. She said she loved the idea of a modern traditionalist relationship. The problem is Valerie's version of modern traditionalist was a one-way street. She was all about being a modern, empowered woman who didn't need to be tied down by a man, except when it came to his wallet. Her favorite topic was the patriarchy and how it forced women into domestic servitude, usually brought up while she was sitting on the couch scrolling through Instagram while I was cooking dinner after a 10-hour day. She used feminism as a shield to avoid any and all responsibility while simultaneously expecting me to fulfill the most traditional provider role imaginable. The hypocrisy was so thick you could cut it with a knife. I put up with it for longer than I should have. Why? Because when we first met, she wasn't like that. She was driven, funny, and seemed to have her own life. The entitled, lazy person she had become was a slow, creeping change, like a foundation settling in a bad way. I kept thinking the old Valerie was still in there somewhere. I was wrong. The breaking point came on a Wednesday. I got home from a job site, covered in dust and completely exhausted, looking forward to a hot meal. I opened the fridge. It was a wasteland. A half-empty bottle of ketchup, a single saddle-looking lime, and a carton of almond milk with about a teaspoon of liquid left in it. The cabinets were the same story, a bag of stale chips and a few cans of beans. Valerie was in the living room working on what she called a passion project, which looked a lot like online shopping. Hey, I said, trying to keep the exhaustion out of my voice. There's no food in the house. She didn't even look up from her laptop. Yeah, I was going to go shopping, but I got into a really creative flow state. You know how it is. No, I don't. I said the patience I had been clinging to for months finally starting to fray. I know that I transferred the grocery money to your account on Monday like I do every week. It's Wednesday, and there's nothing to eat in this house. I've worked 60 hours this week, Val. The one thing I ask of you is that I can come home to a meal. She finally looked at me, her eyes full of a familiar, patronizing disdain. Wow, she scoffed. I'm not your 1950s housewife, I have my own life, my own ambitions. I'm not just here to cook and clean for you. No one is asking you to be a housewife, I said, my voice rising despite myself. I'm asking you to hold up your end of the very simple bargain we made. I pay for everything. You make sure the house runs. It's a team effort, or it's supposed to be. And then she said it, the line that brought the whole rotten structure crashing down. She stood up, her hands on her hips, and looked at me with a sneer of pure, uncut contempt. Oh, I'm sorry. Is providing for your girlfriend too much for you? Be a man, David. That's your job, not mine. The world just went quiet. All the noise, all the excuses, all the endless circular arguments of the past year just stopped. She had finally said the quiet part out loud. She saw me not as a partner, but as a function, a walking, talking ATM whose sole purpose was to fund her lifestyle, while she lectured me on my patriarchal obligations. I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just looked at her, at this complete stranger standing in my living room, and a profound sense of calm settled over me. I just nodded. You're right, I said, my voice eerily quiet. My mistake. I turned, walked into the bedroom, and closed the door, leaving her standing there smug and triumphant. She thought she had won. She thought she had put me back in my place. She had no idea I was about to teach her a very long, very detailed, and very expensive lesson on the true meaning of the word job. Update 1. The next day, I took the day off work. I told Valerie I was going to a job site on the other side of the state and wouldn't be back until late. She barely registered it, already absorbed in her online world. Okay, have fun, she'd mumbled. My first stop was not a job site. It was a hardware store. I bought a heavy-duty keyed padlock and has for the refrigerator. I bought new teed locking doorknobs for every single cabinet and pantry door in the kitchen. I spent about $200. It was the best money I've ever spent. My second stop was the grocery store. I went on the kind of shopping spree you see in the movies. I bought thick-cut Rebbe steaks, fresh salmon, organic vegetables, expensive cheeses, craft beer, a bottle of the 25-year-old single malt scotch I'd been saving for a special occasion. I filled 2 carts to overflowing. I spent over $1,000 on the best food money could buy. Back at the apartment, I got to work. It took me less than an hour to install the new hardware. The fridge now had a thick steel hasp drilled into the side, with a heavy padlock securing the doors. Every single cabinet, from the ones holding the plates and glasses to the pantry with the dry goods, now had a shiny new lock. The only person with the keys was me. Then I put away the groceries. I stocked the fridge and the cabinets until they were bursting. The kitchen looked like a gourmet market, a paradise of beautiful, delicious, and completely inaccessible food. When I was done, I sat down at the kitchen table and drafted a document. It was a budget, a detailed line item accounting of every single expense in our shared life. The rent, the utilities, the car payments, the insurance, the groceries, the subscriptions to her various streaming services. At the bottom, I put the grand total, the monthly cost of the lifestyle she took for granted. Next to it, I put the total of her monthly contribution, 0. I left the budget on the kitchen table, took my new set of teas, and left. I spent the rest of the day at my workshop, actually getting some work done, feeling lighter and more clear-headed than I had in years. I got home around 8 o'clock that night. The scene in the apartment was exactly what I had expected. Valerie was standing in the middle of the kitchen, her face a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. She was surrounded by her 2 best friends, a pair of equally entitled and useless women named Chloe and Jessica, who were looking at the locked cabinets with expressions of horrified disbelief. "What is this?" Valerie shrieked the moment I walked in. "What did you do to my kitchen?" "My kitchen," I corrected her, calmly, setting my work bag down. "And I just secured my assets." "You put a padlock on the refrigerator," she screamed, her voice hitting a pitch I didn't know was humanly possible. "This is insane. This is abusive." I walked over to the kitchen table and picked up the budget I had left for her. "This," I said, holding it up, "is a budget. It's a breakdown of what it costs to run this household. And this," I said, gesturing to the locked cabinets, "is what the person who pays for all of it gets to eat." I pulled my new keys out of my pocket, unlocked the pantry, and took out a box of pasta and a jar of high-end marinara sauce. I unlocked the fridge and took out a package of ground sirloin. "But what am I supposed to eat?" she asked, her voice a mixture of rage and genuine terrified confusion. I looked at her, then at her 2 friends, who were staring at me like I had just grown a second head. I gave them a polite, empty smile. "Yesterday you gave me a very clear and concise job description." I said to Valerie, "You told me it was my job to be a man and provide. You're right. My job is to provide. So, I have provided this food for myself. Your job as a strong, independent, modern woman who is not a 1950s housewife is to provide for yourself. So, I suggest you get to work." I turned my back on them and started cooking my dinner. The sound of their frustrated, incoherent ranting was the perfect seasoning for my meal. Update 2. The domestic chaos that unfolded was something else. Valerie and her friends, after an hour of futile yelling and a clumsy attempt to pick the fridge padlock with a hairpin, retreated to the living room to scheme. Their grand plan? A full-blown social media attack. Valerie posted a tearful Instagram story, complete with a dramatic black-and-white photo of the locked fridge, claiming her financially abusive and controlling boyfriend was trying to starve her. Chloe and Jessica jumped in, reposting it with their own takes, accusing me of toxic masculinity and a fragile ego. They thought they could shame me into backing down. They thought their legion of online followers would rally against me. They misjudged me entirely. I didn't have thousands of followers, just a few hundred, mostly tradesmen, clients, and family, who weren't swayed by sob stories on social media. While they waged their digital war, I fought mine in the real world. The next morning, while Valerie slept, I made my move. I took her car keys. Her trendy little SUV was leased in my name. I was the primary leaseholder. She was just an authorized driver. I drove it to a secure storage unit I owned across town and parked it there. Then I called the leasing company, informed them I was the account holder, and explained that my ex-girlfriend was no longer authorized to drive it. I asked where they wanted the vehicle delivered. Back at the apartment, I continued dismantling the cushy life she'd taken for granted. I canceled her supplementary credit card, changed the passwords on our shared Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon accounts, and even called the fancy gym she loved, the one I paid for, and terminated her membership. When she woke up around noon, she found her car gone and a short, polite note on the kitchen table. As we are no longer together, I've returned the vehicle leased in my name. As a friend, I suggest arranging alternative transportation. Best, David. The meltdown that followed was epic. Screaming, crying, accusations, all dialed up to 11. Her friends showed up again, not to help but to fuel her outrage, playing the role of an indignant chorus. That evening, I came home from work to find the three of them in the living room, surrounded by takeout boxes from a pricey sushi place, having their solidarity dinner. They shot me dirty looks as I walked in. I didn't say a word. I unlocked my kitchen, grabbed a thick ribeye steak, some potatoes and asparagus, and fired up the balcony grill. The smell of my victory meal filled the air as I ate in silence at the dining table, their glares mixed with a hint of envy. And, I noted with satisfaction, hunger. The final step was eviction. I had my lawyer draft an airtight 30-day notice to vacate my apartment. I didn't just send it. I hired a process server who delivered it while Chloe and Jessica were over, serving her the papers in front of her friends for a touch of extra sting. The next 30 days were a harsh lesson for Valerie in reality. No car, no money, no home. Her friends, so quick to amplify her complaints, suddenly had excuses when she needed a place to stay. Chloe was allergic to her cat. Jessica's apartment was too small. Her parents, with whom she had a strained relationship, reluctantly let her move back into her old bedroom, but they made it clear the free ride was over. She'd need a full-time job and to pay rent. Final update. It's been a year. I'm sitting in my apartment's living room, a space that's now calm, tidy, and entirely mine. The walls hold only the art I've chosen. The fridge holds only the food I've bought. It's a place of peace. The breakup with Valerie was uneventful. She moved out after 30 days, leaving the apartment messy. She tried claiming furniture, but my receipts shut her down. Word is, she's struggling, living with parents, then sharing a cheap apartment with roommates after selling her designer stuff for a deposit. She's a barista now, hating it, with her art dreams on hold. Her social media, once glamorous, is now bitter, vague posts about betrayal. Her followers left. I saw her waitressing once. She saw me, went pale, and swapped servers. My revenge wasn't loud, it was calculated. I let her be the independent woman she claimed to be by cutting my financial and emotional support. She wanted a man. I was one, securing my home and assets, just without her. That taught her responsibility no theory could.